Hello, everyone. So excited to have you here tonight. It is the beginning of dental school week. We are starting off with a bang. We'll be talking about all things related to the application process. So this is a great first place to start. You're hearing from the best of the best. Let's give it about 30 seconds while we wait for people to trickle in. While we are waiting, sign up for Leland to make sure you get future invites to events like this. We host a ton of dental school stuff. We're here to give you all the resources that you need to get into a great school. Tonight, very excitingly as well, we're hosting a dental school boot camp, and we're giving away a spot tonight. It's worth over $1,200 in value, and we're giving someone who is here live tonight a free spot to that boot camp. You can register for free, sign up for free to be entered into that giveaway at bit.ly/dental-app-bootcamp. We'll share that link in the chat. You can also scan the QR code if that's easier. Okay, we are so excited to get started. We've got a lot of questions tonight, so let's dive in. This is, again, the very first event of Dental School Week 2025. Again, we'll be covering everything that you really need to know tonight. This is the first of many events. We have a Path to Dental School live Q&A. We've got interview prep, personal statement, office hours, everything that you need related to the dental school this week. Quick logistics for everyone. So ask questions in the chat. I think questions, we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. There are a ton of you here. But ask questions and we'll try to get to them. Be supportive and respectful to the other folks in the chat. Everyone is going through the same process. RSVP for every session that you're interested in so you can get access to the recording and the details and the Zoom links and all of those things. Even if you can't attend live, would still recommend you register just so you have access to everything. And then once again, make sure to sign up for Leland to access the recordings. It will automatically get sent via email to everyone that has signed up for an account on the platform. Okay, quick agenda for tonight. We'll do some welcome introductions, tell you who we are, who our panelists are, way more importantly. Then we'll dive into the panel and we'll wrap up at the end, do that giveaway announcement and some other fun things. My name is Amelia. I run all content here at Leland. It's my job to help you get access to the resources that you need to get into your dream school, to land your dream job, whatever else. You will also see Erica and Amanda here and a couple other members of the Leland team. Shout out to Amanda. There is so much work that goes into these free events, into Dental School Week, and we could not do it without her. So she is the superhero behind the scenes. More importantly, though, I would love to introduce you to our panelists. I'd like to have you guys introduce yourselves to the room. Maybe let's go in order. Harsh, you want to start?
Yeah, of course. Hey, everyone. It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Harsh Chedda. I'm a second-year dental student right now at Columbia University. I've been coaching at Leland for a few months now, and I've helped a lot of different pre-dental students over the past 2.5 years. A lot of my students have been kind of accepted to schools across the country, and I'm just here to kind of impart my knowledge and help out you guys as best as I can.
Thanks, Harsh. Katelyn, take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Katelyn Phelps. I also go to Columbia University like Harsh, but I'm a first-year student here. I just joined the Leland team, actually with Harsh. He reached out with the opportunity. And in the past, I went to University of Wisconsin La Crosse for undergrad, and there I served on the board for our pre-dental committee, and I helped about 50 students a year sort of figure out this application process that can be very confusing and bring up a lot of questions at times.
Awesome. Thank you. Ellen, finish us off.
Hi, following up with the Columbia theme, my name is Ellen. I was for a great period of time the director of admissions at Columbia College of Dental Medicine, although not when Harsh and Katelyn were there. I want you to all send them very good vibes because they're really in the thick of it right now as first and second year dental students. After Columbia Dental School, I was a dean in the post-bac program at Columbia, working with non-traditional students, helping people get into all manner of health professions programs. I then moved up to Fordham College Rose Hill, which is the Bronx campus, and was the assistant dean for pre-health professions advising and built that program up there. A lot of details on my biography on the Leland website if you want to take a picture of the QR code, but I'm not gonna bore you with all of that right now because we have a lot of questions to get to.
Awesome. Thanks, panelists. We are Columbia proud today, but I also love that you guys have such different backgrounds and are coming from, you have so much different types of expertise. I'm excited to dive in. We sent the links to their profiles in the chat. If you do want to see where they've worked, what their background looks like, what their reviews have to say about them, you can check out those links. Okay, you now know us. We would love to get to know you a little bit better. This will also help us tailor the questions to make this as maximally benefit to you as possible. So go ahead and drop it in the chat. When are you applying to dental school? And then where are you living and working? This cycle, okay, this is coming at the perfect time then. More this cycle, 2025, 2026, this summer. Okay, most people are on the cusp of applying, which is great. This is going to be super tactical, and we'll have a lot of stuff for you to take and implement immediately. Okay, keep them coming. This is fun. We've got people from all over the place: Miami, Hawaii, Arizona, New York, Chicago, Delaware, Canada. Keep them coming. We'll keep reading them. There's a lot of you here, but we so appreciate having you here tonight. Thanks for spending your time, and it's a good investment in yourself as well. Okay, so if this is your first Leland event, which for some of you I would wager it is, to give you a little bit of a background on who we are truly building the one-stop shop to help you reach whatever your goal may be. For many of you, I know that is get into dental school. After that, it may be to land a dental residency or to get a job. We have a ton of different products to help you with all of these things. So one-on-one coaching with our experts. What's amazing is you can book time and work individually with any of the panelists that we have on this platform and the others that we have on Leland. We only accept about 5% of coaches on the platform, and we get thousands and thousands of applicants. So you're truly getting access to like the best of the best when you're at Leland. We also do a bunch of live cohort-based courses or boot camps. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then we also have an on-demand content library called Leland Plus, where you can access sample personal statements from accepted dental school applicants and a ton of other resources. I think my personal favorite part about working at Leland, and probably the coaches' also favorite part about coaching, is that it's working. We are constantly helping people achieve their dreams. As you can see on the right, we've had people get accepted to a ton of top programs. And every day it feels like someone is pinging us and saying, hey, I got my goal, I did this. And we like to say that when you work with a Leland coach, you are drafting an entire team onto your side. The Leland team, your coaches, our community, every single person is rooting you on, and we want you to succeed. If you've never worked with a coach before and you're like, whoa, I don't even know where to start, or if this could be valuable to me, just to give you a brief taste, and then we'll dive into the panel, I promise. You can get coaching. I think the beauty of coaching is that you can get help on whatever you need help with, whether it's like very specifically, I need help with this essay, or with my interview prep, or with my secondaries to this particular program. Or if you want help for every single thing, you can get like a comprehensive package where someone is taking you by the hand and walking you through every single step of the application process, which is incredibly valuable. I think it's super incredibly helpful to have someone in your corner that is just like, they've got you, you know? So anyways, there's a ton of different use cases for coaching. We look at our coaches' profiles tonight to get started, to see what that might look like. Okay, without further ado, let's dive into our dental school panel. We've got a ton to cover tonight. Really quickly, to just give you kind of a high-level view of some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. And if you are applying this cycle, which it seems like a lot of you are, then you'll know this, but you need a high DAT score. We'll talk about what that looks like. You need to start your prep early, particularly for dental school, where you have prereq classes that you need to be taking in undergrad. Like, you kind of need to know that this is your route. You should research the programs that you're going to apply to. You should highlight your experiences and achievements. And again, we'll talk about what those should look like. Top grades, your GPA obviously is important, your personal statement, letters of recommendation, and secondaries. We'll cover all of these things tonight. Okay, tell us what part of the process seems the most daunting to you. Usually it's personal statements or standardized tests for people. The DAT, yep. Yeah, that is, no one likes standardized tests. Interviews, that's an underrated one as well. Okay, this is great. We have a question on the DAT coming up. Panelists, I want to start off with kind of a high level. Let's figure out where our feet are right now. What is your top tip for helping someone get into dental school? Ellen, you want to start us off?
I think that all of you are doing it right now, which is starting early, right? Whether you're a freshman in college, super early, or you're preparing for the next cycle, this is not something you can throw together at the 11th hour, right? So there's a million different ways you can be involved and prepare yourself academically and clinically and research-wise, and core competencies, things like that. But starting now and being able to put the amount of time into it that it takes to make sure that your application is saying all of the strong things about you and taking the time to refine it and make sure that someone with the exact same metrics as you is not describing themselves as well and as completely as you are. And over the years, this has kind of been my mantra. You start early and you go back and you review and you review and you review all of the material you're going to be sharing with schools. And that's really going to put you in a good place to succeed.
I love that. I think like starting early sounds so nice, but you don't really think that you need it. And then you sit down and try to write your first essay and you're like, whoa, okay, like maybe I should have given myself a couple more months. So we're telling you now to give yourself as much time as possible. Katelyn, what is your top tip?
Yeah, my top tip is kind of similar to Ellen's. I would just say really make sure that your application reflects you as a person. There's going to be somebody out there with the exact same DAT score, exact same GPA. So you want to make sure that something differentiates you two. And my biggest tip would be to pursue things that you're passionate about. There's obviously those sort of check boxes that you need to do to get into dental school. But if you choose to do those in a way that makes you excited to talk about it, people will want to listen to your story more and it'll come more naturally rather than just trying to fit into some cookie cutter sort of mold that doesn't really reflect you.
I love that. Well, I want to ask you more follow-ups about that later. Harsh, what is your top tip?
Yeah, I think honestly, exactly what was mentioned was phenomenal. I think getting ready early, I think, is a big tip that I have, but also planning accordingly. I think when it comes to applying to dental school, there's a lot of different individual components to it. For example, like letters of rec, personal statement, developing the activities list, a lot of various things that you can kind of plan accordingly. And if you start early, the benefit to that is not only will you have all of these ready and available to you, but you can also have it read by multiple people. I think one of the main things when applying to dental school is making sure that you have multiple people go through your application, read it over, make sure that, you know, your story kind of resonates with them, because that'll be a good idea of how you'll kind of stand out for dental school applications.
Awesome. Such good places to start from, coaches. Let's dig into some of these more tactical parts a little bit more. So if you're applying, let's say this cycle, because a lot of people are applying this cycle, what should they be thinking about in terms of what do I do when? You know, do I start with my recommenders? Do I start with drafting essays? Obviously, I need to take the DAT. How do I give myself enough time to get a good score? Any kind of timeline related tips? Harsh, let me go back to you on this one.
Awesome. Yeah. I think in terms of the ideal timeline to prepare for dental school, right now is the best time if you're applying for the upcoming cycle. One of the main things I recommend is for letters of rec, you want to ask professors at least a few months in advance just to give them a good amount of notice. The dental school application opens up in May, and then you're able to submit it in the beginning of June. So ideally, starting a few months prior to May is perfect. And that same thing goes to writing drafts for your personal statement, working on individual activities or application components like the activities list, the manual dexterity essay, as well as the COVID essay. And just many different components. Starting in that January, February timeframe before the application opens up, I think is most ideal. And that kind of prepares you best to submit as early as possible, ideally in June. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's a good reminder of like, you should be ready to apply. Ellen, I know you've helped a ton of people on Leland over the last couple of years, especially through like those comprehensive packages. If people want help from a coach, especially someone who books out like yourself, when should they be looking to get kind of this comprehensive help?
Well, I think that it says a lot that there are so many people on here tonight already starting the process who are in this cycle. You know, again, the ones who are on a year or two or some even 3 or 4 years ahead, that's a great way to begin. But right now, you want to book out now if you can, if you want people at Leland to help you, because as Harsh said, you know, you have to get a jump on the primary essay, the secondary essays, letters of recommendation, all of that. At the very least, all of you right now who are applying in the 26 cycle should be logging in and opening up an ADSES application. And it doesn't matter if we're still in the entering 25 cycle, that ADSES ID number is going to be yours forever. And you'll be able to kind of look over the different schools and see what the program materials are and what they're asking you for. No one should ever worry that you're going to accidentally apply. You know, you're not going to accidentally put your credit card in and accidentally verify the code and all of that. But you can log on and you can start looking at all the schools and what the application program materials are individually. So you see what those secondary essays are, and you can really start to kind of think through how you're going to approach those. So earlier is better because it gives you have more free time between now and June than you're going to have in May when you start thinking about it if you do it another way.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's also great advice to just look at the application. Sometimes it's this big, scary, amorphous thing, but looking at it is a good motivating factor because it's sitting right in front of you. And I think it humanizes it a little bit. Great advice, coaches. There's a lot that goes into this, as we've talked about, from the quantitative GPA and DAT score to the personal statements, to the secondaries, to the letters of evaluation. If I'm thinking about like, what do I prioritize? What do I need to make sure is like really, really, really strong and world class? What are some of the components of the application that you think that adcoms are paying, extra special attention to? Katelyn, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. I think it all kind of comes down to a balance. If you have a super strong DAT, a super strong GPA, maybe some of those other things don't hold quite as much weight. Whereas if you have a lower GPA or a lower DAT score, definitely want to make sure that personal statement, those extracurriculars, letters of rec are super, super strong. Ideally, every part of your application will be as strong as it can be. But I would just kind of know where your weaknesses lie within your application. In general, a successful dental school application, like I said before, really reflects you. And I think securing letters of rec that reflect that are really important, and sort of diversifying that as well. So advice I received was to sort of pick people for your letters of rec that know you in different aspects of your life. So maybe one lecture professor, a lab professor that can speak on your hygiene, your time maintenance, and like a lab setting, an employer that knows you on a more personal level. So just trying to make yourself seem very human, so you can go beyond just the test scores there.
Yeah, you hinted at something that I think is really, really important, and that's that I think a lot of people think about their application components very siloed, right? I'm going to work on my essays and then I'm going to get these letters of recommendation. But the best applications are like super strategic and how you're looking at it from the bird's eye view. So how are your personal statements playing into your quantitative scores, and how are your letters of recommendation either supporting or contradicting or whatever? So if you're not thinking about how the different pieces of your application are working together, then you're losing some of that higher kind of bird's eye view strategy. So I think it's really important what you said, Katelyn, of like every component is important. I think what is most important for you is going to come down to how your strategy plays around who you as a person. But is that correct to say?
Yeah, that's exactly it. You got it.
Cool. Awesome. Let's dive in. We're getting a lot of questions about specific parts of the application. We're going to try and get through as many of them as we can. And once again, we've got a ton of sessions this week on those specific components. So if you haven't already, make sure to sign up for those individual like we've got a deep dive on personal statements that will go into a lot more depth. Okay, the DAT, we have already heard that this is the most stressful part for a lot of candidates on this call. Ellen, any like best practice advice for how to tackle this? How can I even get started thinking about getting my target score on the DAT?
Well, I'm the only one on the panel who's never taken the DAT, but I would say that a lot of practice is important. That's the advice that I have always given. As many practice exams as you can take so you're comfortable with the pacing of it. I know that a lot of students in this cycle are very stressed out by the scoring change. It's going from the 1 to 30 score to the 200 to 600 scoring range. No one should stress about that. The exam is exactly the same. Not one thing has changed. Don't worry about the new scoring system. Let admissions offices worry about how to read that. It's nothing you should be concerned about. But in terms of the DAT, make sure that you sit for that exam when you feel ready for it. Don't rush it and say, oh, if I don't do well, I'll take it again. Don't actively have an unprepared score out there, because school's average. You don't know how they're going to look at it, and there's no reason why you should have a score out there that is not your best day.
I love that. Harsh, what about you for the DAT? What's your advice? What did you do?
Yeah, no, I definitely second what Ellen was saying, but I think when it comes to the DAT, there's three main components that I think I usually recommend students whenever I'm helping them prepare for the DAT. One is planning accordingly. So when it comes to the DAT, there's a lot of good resources available, but you really want to make sure that you use your time efficiently, because you don't want to just keep on, reviewing content over and over again. Like Ellen was saying, taking practice tests is very, very important. Secondly, using the right resources, right? So what I kind of recommend is kind of using either Bootcamp, DAT Booster, just as like a standard for content review. And then, either using one or both to kind of supplement in terms of doing practice exams and just reviewing more and more questions, because I think the more questions you can get your eyes on, the better you'll perform. And third, just making sure you're able to have a good support system. When it comes to studying for the DAT, the biggest stressor is the fact that you're at it alone, and it can be very daunting. Using support resources, for example, tutoring, is a great way to kind of help make sure that you're on track. I know myself, I had an accountability system through a group of friends. And I think when it comes to the DAT, also making sure that you don't get too caught up reading online, focusing on other people's experiences is also very important. Everybody studies differently, so creating an individualized plan is going to be the most important thing I recommend. I remember I created like a giant Excel for when I was studying, so I kind of mapped out like, oh, this day I'm going to do this day I'm going to do that. So kind of being organized and not, following others' advice fully is the best way, I think, just because it's a very individualized exam.
But that's great. I love that. I've heard a bunch of DAT tutors talk about you don't want to study everything equally, right? If you're feeling very, very good about a section, your practice tests reflect that. Spend your time, as you're saying, Harsh, on the patterns and the types of problems that you are not as comfortable with. I'm getting pinged on a bunch of very specific questions about the DAT and the new scoring system. Online is going to be your best source of information for that. The other thing that I would recommend doing, especially for knowing how you compare to your target schools, a lot of schools publish their class profiles with the average scores of the most recent incoming class. So if you have an idea of what schools you want to go and look at their class profile, see what the average DAT scores were for those applicants, for those admits, and then that gives you kind of a bandwidth, especially for reach and target and safety schools and that whole thing. Okay, awesome. Kind of related to this, and it goes back to what we were talking about, Katelyn, on your kind of application as a whole. What do I do if I have a low GPA, a DAT score, or like any other kind of red flag, that someone may have some questions about a piece of my application? Ellen, I'm curious what you've done with past clients you've worked with.
So for a lower GPA, what we're looking for is to see an upward trend, right? Maybe you struggled at the beginning of college, maybe you had one semester or one academic year that's bringing you down. So the ADSES application is set up that I can look at it kind of in a timeline, right? I can look at your science GPA, I can look at biology specifically, chemistry specifically, non-science. So I'm going to be kind of trying to put together the pieces and see what went on here. And if I see that there's just kind of one area that's pulling you down, I'm going to look a little bit deeper and say this might be a student who has a lot to offer, but is kind of has an artificially deflated GPA. With the DAT, it's a little bit trickier, right? Because it's what everyone in the country is taking that same exam with that same standard. So again, you want to give yourself plenty of time to make sure that you're in good shape taking it. If you have to retake it, it is not a red flag. But you don't go into it unprepared for it. And you certainly, most people don't realize this, the reading comprehension score is probably the most important score because it's the one that shows the strongest correlation with how you're going to do on the national boards part 1. And just as schools will kind of tout what their GPA average is, they'll also talk a lot about the national boards and how their students do. So you want to make sure that you're ready for this exam, right? Because it is one day. But if your GPA is lower, just keep plugging away and try and kind of string together some higher and higher terms with stronger grades. Try and pull in more A's than B's as you're finishing up your undergrad.
Great reminder. Also goes back to start as early as you can. And we all know that for these health fields, quantitative does matter. So whatever you can do early on to get that high GPA and that high DAT score. If you have, I got a couple messages about very, again, kind of specific situations. So I have an average score and a high score. I was sick and I missed a semester stuff. That is all, those like hyper specific stuff is totally what you should be getting advice from an expert on who can evaluate, because you can't just look at one piece of that siloed. You have to look at it in terms of the broader application and who you will be as a dental school student. So any of those, specific questions, book a free intro call with any of the coaches on our panelists and work with them on those. Okay, researching like school selection. Katelyn, how did you think about figuring out what schools you wanted to apply to? I would love to know how many you ended up applying to, how you staggered them. What advice do you have on school selection?
Yeah, absolutely. So my freshman year of college, I started with a list of every dental school in the nation, just like an Excel spreadsheet with different criteria that I was planning on looking into, but it was still early. I was a freshman, didn't need to think about it too much quite yet. Then I sort of did research. My main points were class size, the clinical experiences, match rates for residencies, the curriculum style, if it was pass fail, graded, ranked, unranked, the location, and the cost. So those were my main points that I wanted to look at, and I sort of narrowed my list from there. And I ended up with 7 schools that I applied to, which is somewhat on the lower end, but ultimately it was expensive and I didn't want to spend more money than I thought I needed to. So I applied to 3 reach schools, 3 match schools, and 1 safety school. And I just want to emphasize again that there's not like a magic number of schools that you have to apply to. I originally was going to apply to about 11, and then I sort of reevaluated my list and I was like, would I really choose this school over this one, my 1 safety school? And that was kind of my metric for which schools I should really apply to, spending my time and money on those.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a very great logical way to approach this. Harsh, tell me about what it looked like for you, this school selection process.
Yeah, definitely. I think I had a lot of similar characteristics in terms of the schools that I was looking for as Katelyn did. I definitely went on the higher side though. I initially was kind of fearful that I went to a smaller undergrad and it wasn't like as well known, but I have come to realize that that's not really a big deal for dental school admissions. So I ended up applying to 18 schools when I was initially just submitting my applications, and I interviewed at 16 and I was accepted to 15 of them. And so I think one of the main things when it came to making a decision for schools, pass fail was a pretty big component. I really love pass fail curriculums just because they kind of inspire like a more collaborative nature. And as our school, I know Katelyn knows this as well, we are a very collaborative school at Columbia. So I think that's one of the things that pass fail has really been beneficial for. Another thing is you really want to know what you kind of want to do long term, whether or not you want to specialize, where you kind of want to live, what areas you want to explore. I'm originally from Chicago, and I went to undergrad in Florida, so I've kind of been jumping around everywhere. And you know, Columbia's in Manhattan, so I thought that this would be a great opportunity for me to spend 4 years in New York, which I probably would not have done if I had not gone to dental school here. So I think location was a big draw to the school. Cost is another important thing that you want to consider definitely when it comes to dental school, because as you know, dental school is the highest on average graduate program in the country. One of the main things to consider is what you're most interested in. I personally was more interested in specializing in the future. So Columbia kind of aligned its goals with mine in that regard. And so I think that was another reason where I kind of justified the cost of the program with the advantage to kind of specialize. But yeah, those were a few of the ways that I kind of helped figure out where I wanted to go for dental school.
That's great. Thank you, Katelyn Harsh, for your thoughts there. There's 2 things that you both mentioned that I want to spotlight. The first one is that they both were considering very specific factors and then ranking the many programs in the US by those factors. And what I love about that is it shows that there's a lot of different ways you can look at these programs, and figuring out what even matters to you before going into that process is going to get a lot less overwhelming, right? So do you care about location? Do you care about cost? Do you care about pass fail curriculums? All of that stuff is think about it will help you kind of narrow that list down pretty dramatically up front, and then you can get really in the weeds for the programs that you're trying to choose. The other thing that I love that you mentioned, Harsh, is you as Columbia students now know very specifically what the culture and the academic environment at Columbia is. So if there are schools that you're kind of on the fence about, or that you really want to go to and you want to know as much as you can about them, talk to current students and alumni like Harsh and Katelyn, hear about their experiences at these schools. It will give you way better, like you'll make a better decision because of that. It will also give you fodder for your interviews and personal statements and things down the line. Great advice, Harsh and Katelyn. Love both of those points.
I just want to chime in very quickly if I
Go
can.
ahead.
Also, don't forget that if you're applying to only your state school because you think that the tuition is lower, you don't have to attend any school you get into, and you don't know what kind of scholarship and grant aid would be available at a private school. And very often the difference is less than you might think it is. So don't rule out anything until you get kind of all your acceptances on the table.
Great advice. Thank you. Okay, panelists, grab a glass of water. We've had you talk a lot. We're gonna do a quick commercial break. Andrew is here to tell you a little bit more about the dental school boot camp. I am currently doing the boot camp with Leland. They are awesome. This is the best kind of jump starter to getting into your application. It's so structured, and we bring in the best coaches. But Andrew, if you are here, I will turn it over to you.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks. Amelia, you said it perfectly. Obviously, these webinars are really great, like informational, getting a head start. But if you want to like dive deep into your actual application and not do it alone, this is the best way to do that is through our boot camp. So we have one in about a month from now, and I'm going to run through the details a little bit about it. So that way you guys can get a better understanding of what it's going to entail. So just like we're having a live webinar now, we'll have several live courses, a lot of which are around the topics y'all have mentioned, like very heavily in kind of your, when it comes to your personal interviews and whatever else it might be. All of these will be held live, and just like this session, it will be recorded. And in addition to that, we'll have really great coaches like Ellen. I think she's hosting one of these sessions as well for the boot camp. So be sure to attend to see some more of her. And if you go to the next slide, not only do we have live, videos like these, but so much more in depth than that. Like think of every cool product you may have seen or heard from Leland. They're all going to be included here as well. So there's the live sessions, some, feedback, interactive activities. You'll even get to do a mock interview, some discounts for additional coaching. And then Leland Plus is like our library of tons of content and courses. So normally all this would be, as you can see, probably, thousands of dollars. But for everyone here today, we're doing it for half off. So it'll be $600 and it expires tonight. So what we'll do on the next slide again, and what we already sent it in the chat, but we could send it again. If you go to bit.ly/dental-app-bootcamp, you'll be able to apply. And once again, there's going to be one lucky person here that is going to win the bootcamp for free, but then everyone else will be eligible for that discount. So once you apply there, you'll get an automated text from me, but then it's actually me. So if you have questions and stuff about the bootcamp, you can let me know. We can message back and forth. But yeah, at the end of the call, Amelia will announce who the winner is. And then from there, everyone else obviously will have access to that discount that they can use. So if you have any other questions, let me know. But that's all I got. So I'll pass it back to Amelia.
Thanks, Andrew. We are genuinely trying to help you. We started these boot camps not that long ago because the question was, how can we help the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time with their applications? And the answer is this boot camp. So fill out that giveaway. Again, we're giving a free spot tonight just for being here. And if you have any questions, like Andrew said, you can reach him. Okay, back to our regular scheduled programming, extracurricular activities. We've already got a couple questions in the chat about shadowing and internships. So Ellen, let me bring this to you first. What kind of extracurricular activities should I be thinking about? And then any advice you have particularly around shadowing would be helpful too.
So the extracurricular activities, say to me on the admissions committee, they tell me what kind of member of my community you're going to be, right? Are you somebody who goes out and volunteers? Are you somebody who has great hobbies that you like to do? Are you somebody who works with the underserved? I want to know that you are more than just someone whose nose is in the book and who has done well academically, because I'm building a new community every single year and I want it to be high energy and I want the people to kind of really bond with each other and support each other. So whatever you do, do something, right? And service is always the best thing you can do. It does not have to be dentally related, but go out there, make the community that you live in a better place. And that says a lot about you as a person. And so I like to see that. I like to see what you're doing outside the classroom. In terms of shadowing, clinical experience, getting paid, not getting paid, never mattered to us at Columbia because we just wanted to know that you understood the profession. You knew what you were getting into when you got to the clinic. It was not a surprise to you what a dentist does, what it's like working with patients, what it's like working with older ones, younger ones. You don't have to cover all of the specialties. If you think you want to be an orthodontist, you don't have to volunteer before dental school with an orthodontist. Just get out there and learn more about the profession. That's what the most important thing is.
I love that. To your earlier point about staying off Reddit too, this is where I think there is the most misinformation to ask the experts, like the people on this panel who actually have been through this process and know. Not that you can't, there are gold nuggets on Reddit, of course. But Ellen, let me ask, I also heard it explained very similarly on another panel that it doesn't matter what you've been involved in, it matters what you've been involved in. What does that say about you? So to your points, do your hours show that you know what it takes to succeed in the dental career and you're going to succeed anyways? Does it reflect who you are as a person, to Caitlin's earlier point about just being yourself?
Right. Exactly. Who is this person I'm bringing in? I mean, the whole reason putting together the EdSS application is so I can see who you are and what you've done. Otherwise, it would just be, send your DAT, send your transcript, and we'll let you know. But I mean, be a real person. I'm sure that my co-panelists can talk about the difference between the different schools at Columbia and the graduate programs, and the dental school tends to be really high energy with a lot of fun people that does a lot of good stuff, because that's the type of person who succeeds, right? You're with your patients for much longer than physicians are with their patients. You're a people person. So show me show me that side of yourself.
I love that. Harsh, Katelyn, anything to add on extracurriculars?
One of the main things that just to kind of add briefly is quantity or quality over quantity. The quality of the extracurricular will definitely be seen, I'm sure, in like an admissions perspective. I think one of the main things that I kind of recommend whenever kind of developing your extracurricular list is like there's no extracurricular that you should leave off. If you've done like a sport, if you've done a hobby that is like something very meaningful to you, I think that's definitely important to add on to show kind of like what your personality is in terms of your activities. And one of the main things when it comes to extracurriculars is making sure that you stick with what you like for a longer period of time, rather than, like shadowing or volunteering for like a month for like 100 hours. It's better to do that over a longer period of time, just because you're not only getting more of a meaningful experience out of that activity, but also it shows more quality in the activity that you're doing. So that's kind of one of the main pieces of advice I would say for extracurriculars.
That's a great reminder and dovetails really well into the other advice of, choose stuff that reflects you and start early. Katelyn, any other things to add? And we've gotten some questions about research experience. So if you have any insights on how important is research compared to clinical and shadowing and internships and all the other kinds of extracurriculars?
Yeah, sort of what the other panelists have been talking about. Extracurriculars show that like person side of you, because the test scores that you put on your application don't tell how you'll work with a patient, how you'll work in a team, and those are so important in dentistry. So it is important to show that side of yourself. And in terms of research, I was involved in a research project for all the years I was in undergrad. And throughout the application process, it was always like a nice boost, but it was never something that was super strongly emphasized in any of my interviews. So if it's something that you're passionate about, which I was very passionate about my research project, obviously put it on there. It's great to talk about. I love talking about it, but don't feel like you have to go out and seek a research project if you're not going to enjoy it. It's going to take up your time, that you could be doing other extracurriculars that show more of who you truly are.
Awesome. That's great. Great advice on extracurriculars. If you have questions about your individual circumstances, again, book an intro call, get a coach, join the boot camp. Lots of ways for you to get help. Okay, personal statements. I know this one is also very high stressful for a lot of people. How do I put who I am in a set amount of words on a piece of paper? I want to get all of your thoughts on this because I think personal statements is really important. Ellen, let's start with you. You can answer what makes a stellar personal statement, or just talk more high level about what you've seen differentiates the best personal statements or how I can get started.
So what I hear again and again is, I just don't know what to write. There's nothing special that I've done. There's no wow factor. There's no kind of big extreme activity I was involved in that anyone would care about. I have read conservatively 10,000 million personal statements, and rarely is there some big, huge wow factor in the good ones. They need to be genuine, right? All of you want to go in the dental field. It would then stand to reason that you've had a lot of similar experiences building up to this and preparing yourself for it. And there's nothing wrong with talking about those experiences and how they impacted you. If it's genuine, if you really have a passion for it and you're telling me why you love it, that's a great personal statement. I'm doing a program tomorrow night. Tune in and we'll talk more about it. But the personal statement is at its core personal. Just tell me about you. There's just not a lot of kind of dynamic activities people are doing that make everyone else's personal statement great and yours not good. I want authenticity. I want it to be genuine, and I want to really feel kind of that I understand what brought you here.
I love what you just said, because it's not intuitive to most people, but it's so important. If every single person is writing the same personal statement, then the only thing that you really have to differentiate yourself is like going deep into who you are, because the only thing that's different is like who you are compared to everyone else. You probably have very similar experiences, very similar aspirations. You're applying to the same type of programs, but there is no other you applying. And so that is your superpower.
Right. My only pet peeve about it is if I'm reviewing applications and I'm sitting in my office and I'm going through, 75 to 100 on that day, if your personal statement is slow and meandering and telling me a big, long descriptive story, I am moving on, right? If the first paragraph is so important for you to just really, really get to the point and pull me in.
Tell me more about that. Go into a little bit more detail. What are you looking for specifically in that first paragraph? Is it a thesis, like this is who I am, and everything following is going to kind of surround that? Or what's your advice to your clients on their first paragraphs?
Well, I think that everyone here probably has an idea of what they think they might want to write about. So whatever that idea is, cut away all the descriptive parts of it and just get right to the point of saying, when I was 4 years old, when I was not 4 years old, probably 8 years old, I fell off my bike and knocked out all my front teeth. That's pulling me in. I'm like, okay, this is where this all began, right? Just pull me in. Don't tell me about it was a beautiful day. You were riding with your sister. There were clouds in the sky. You thought it was going to be your best day. None of that matters. Get me right to the heart of it and then build on it from there. It seems simple to me, but it is not intuitive to most people. And it's really hard when I kind of take out the metaphorical red pen and cross everything out. People are like, wait, no. Like, no, trust me, this is going to be good, right? We're going to pull this together. You're going to pull me in because personal statements, everyone's going to pay attention to that first paragraph, but then I'm skimming when I'm screening, not when I'm interviewing you, but the screening is what you're working towards, right? So if you are kind of meandering and you're losing me, then I'm kind of just moving on to the rest of your application. You just have to kind of think about the volume of what people are doing. Your interviewer is going to read every word, but that's fine. You're going to talk to that person for 30 or 45 minutes, but you're just kind of trying to pull me in and give me your motivation. So get right to the point.
I love that. I think coming from college application essays, a lot of people probably err on the side of fictional, like narrative, like I'm writing you a novel, when instead it's like, you're writing this to tell me why you belong in this program. Go. That's great. Katelyn, anything to add on personal statements?
Yeah, I would say this kind of goes into a little bit of my coaching style. I'm very direct. I don't really like to sugarcoat things too much. Know your writing capabilities. If you're not a strong writer, don't try to make an elaborate, all-encompassing story. Just get to the point, kind of what Ellen was saying, and do the best that you can, obviously, but don't try to step out of your comfort zone to make this outstanding personal statement, because that can often sort of backfire. When I was back in lacrosse, helping students get into dental school, I read a lot of personal statements, just kind of filtering them through before they got sent out to applications. And I saw that a lot, where I could see the idea and the concept that was there, but it just wasn't accomplishing what it needed to accomplish. The writing wasn't clear enough. So make sure that your story is so set and that you know exactly what you want to say, make an outline, and then write it out.
That's excellent advice. And one thing that you just said too, I think everyone needs to hear, and that's that sometimes I think we get so jaded from our own stories. Like we are so biased by our own experiences because you are seeing it through your pair of eyes and no one else's. So having someone like any of these panelists to just kind of step back and have that objectivity to say, do you know, this is saying what I'm seeing it a little bit differently than you are. I think the other thing that we see all the time is people come in with these incredible life experiences, but to them it's tiny. It's a small part of their story. And so having someone, I think a coach is oftentimes like a therapist, where they're trying to tease out the different parts of you because they have a better view on what's powerful, what's going to resonate with an admissions committee, what plays well into the rest of your application that you don't have when you're in it. Harsh, I would love anything that you have to add on personal statements. We've also gotten some questions on red flags or things to avoid with personal statements. So if you have any thoughts there, would welcome them as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think when it comes to the personal statement, I also had a very challenging time with this, just because I found myself asking myself there's nothing really special about me. Like, what should I write about? How should I, form this? So I created my personal statement in very a bread and butter type of way. I had an intro hook, very brief paragraph about, what really stuck out to me about dentistry. And then I am very passionate about Legos, so I kind of threw that into my intro hook as well. So I kind of connected that to dentistry, just because I found a lot of connections. And then I wanted to talk about different experiences that really helped me solidify my interest. I had very meaningful shadowing experiences, so I was able to talk about one of those. Research was really big for me in undergrad. I really loved doing research, and I've continued to do that in dental school as well. And that really opened my eyes for innovation in dentistry. So I kind of added that into my personal statement. And then finally, one of my big introductions to dentistry was actually my grandparents, because they actually did not believe in dental care, because they came from, a rural village in India where dental care wasn't really prioritized. So I kind of saw the opposite side of dentistry, and I kind of brought that into my personal statement, how it was very interesting seeing different worlds collide. And so all of those things really helped me kind of realized that my personal statement was more so just a way for me to describe what different experiences kind of contributed to my solidified interest in dentistry. So from my experiences, I was able to pull different aspects of dentistry that I really liked, like, reaching out and serving a community, innovation, not only that, but just developing patient relations. And I think that was a way that I was able to take whatever my experience was and turn it into an entire story. So the biggest piece of advice that I have is every single person's journey is different. I've talked to so many of my classmates about how they got, or what they've, how they kind of got into dental school, what got them into dentistry, and not one person will ever have the same exact response. So I think when you're writing your personal statement, know that your story is only for yourself. So if you're able to kind of show that through that essay, I think, you'll be different.
Love that. I think a lot of times too, people get overly critical of like, oh, I'm not unique enough. I'm not special enough. I don't deserve to go to this school because I'm just like every other applicant. But you are like, every single person is unique. And I love in your description of your personal statement, Harsh, I could say, okay, after just that introduction, I know who you are. I know what you care about. I know like some things that you do in your free time. I know why you want to go to dental school. And all of those things together make you you, and like make you a really awesome dental applicant, right? It's not like you didn't solve cancer or, hike Mount Everest at 5. Like it's you and it's your story. Okay, we are going to speed through some of these last couple of questions. Letters of recommendation. We've gotten some questions in the chat about this. Katelyn, any advice on letters of recommendation?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this earlier, but some advice that I got was to spread out who you're getting your letters of recommendation from. So I got one from a lecture professor who kind of touched on my academic skills and my going to office hours, things like that. I did another one from a lab professor that mentioned my hygiene, my leadership in a lab setting, my cleanliness, my ability to manage my time well. I got one from my research professor, and this is also going into how some schools are very specific on the letters of recommendation. So for one of the schools I applied to, they wanted letters of rec from science professors that had assigned me a grade. At that point, my research PI, I didn't have him for a class yet. So he was a science professor that I was going to have, but he didn't assign me a grade at the time of me applying. So he did not count in that category. So there's some stipulations that you have to be very considerate of when you're choosing who you're getting your letters of rec from. And then I also got a letter of recommendation from a dentist that I had worked with closely. I've been working in an oral surgery clinic in the summers before going into dental school. So that's my biggest advice, to just kind of spread out who you are as a person with those different people that you're getting letters of rec from, and ask them early and ask them often, send reminders. I unfortunately had to wait like 3 weeks to submit my application because I was just waiting on a letter of rec. So don't let that happen to you. Make sure you're checking in constantly and really giving them that push if they need it to finish up the letters.
That's great advice. One thing that we recommend doing is a lot of our coaches will help their clients put together a letter of recommendation prep document that says, here's the schools I'm applying to, here's what I care about, here's my personal statement, here's like some qualities that I think would be great to highlight. It like helps those recommenders write about qualities that you want them to. They're also they know your motivation, so they know things to maybe, also highlight. And it kind of shows that you care about this process and that you're invested, and they should be too. Okay, let's keep going. Secondaries. Harsh, any advice on secondaries?
Yeah, so one of the main things, kind of touching back on how to prepare for your application, I really think that it's important to get a lot of your application components kind of developed in the earlier stages, just because what I did for my secondaries was a lot of these dental schools are now adding their secondary essays into their primary application. So you can't actually submit that application for that dental school until all these supplemental essays are also completed. So usually secondaries kind of consist of a few set of supplemental essays and then maybe some general information about the applicant. So one of the main things that I recommend is making sure that you have your application prepared early on, just because then you can kind of spend that month of June or, that second half of May preparing those secondary essays that are in the primary application. Another thing to kind of consider is always make sure that you're noting down all the schools that you're applying to and then what their secondary requirements are. For example, I know with Columbia, it was a little bit different where you actually, for me, I had to go into the portal and there was a brief description that said, you have to go on Columbia's website and then pay the secondary fee. So there's different schools that have different stipulations. So it's very important that you read each school's secondary requirements. Most of them, they'll just email you back after you've submitted your primary application with the secondary application. But every school is different. So you really want to make sure you kind of are on top of every single school that you apply to.
Awesome. Thank you. Great advice. It also, like if you start early, that's another benefit, right? You'll know what schools that you're applying to. You will know their requirements. I think it also goes back to Ellen's early advice of open the application so you know what to expect and you're not trying to haphazardly answer questions last minute. Okay, we've chatted a little bit about this, but I want to open it up to any coach any panelist who has additional thoughts. How can I make myself stand out, especially if I'm applying to very competitive schools? Is there anything that I can do differently to show how qualified and excited I am?
No, because just kind of keep doing what you're doing to prepare for dental school, right? Be involved in your community, do community service, be part of clubs and organizations. If you can't do kind of top level leadership, be someone who is involved and who can talk about the experiences you have inside the classroom, in the clinic, outside in the community. That's good. There's no kind of one special thing that we can recommend. Just have kind of a rich and deep application that you're putting forward, that you've been involved and you've learned about dentistry by being around it.
Love it. Great advice. Be yourself. You should hear that from us tonight. Be yourself. Okay, awesome. Last couple of questions. Last chance to enter the giveaway. If you have not done so already as well, we'll be picking that soon. So if you haven't applied to the giveaway, apply right now. Amanda, maybe if we can send the link one more time for that. There it is. Okay, awesome. Common mistakes that you see people, and this can be more broader kind of strategic ones. It can be about specific parts of the application, common mistakes or misconceptions maybe that people come into this application process with. I will leave it open to any of you panelists.
Yeah, I can definitely tackle this one. So I think some of the common mistakes that I've kind of seen in the past is kind of really compiling a lot of activities into the semester right before you apply. I know that, sometimes it's very easy to get caught up in reading online and seeing, oh, this person has this many hours, this person has this many, volunteering activities and stuff like that. Piling on activities just right before you apply is very noticeable, especially on an admissions perspective. So definitely make sure that you're not doing this too much. Another big thing when it comes to common mistakes is not being prepared enough. A lot of people kind of don't take the value in like getting an interview. I know some perspectives is just an interview is very conversational and you can just, kind of like wing it, so to say. I think it's very important to do mock interviews, very important to, prepare with different people. And another important thing, a common mistake that I see is not reviewing your essays enough. I always like for the personal statement, I believe I had like 12 different drafts of it. So it was definitely read by multiple different people, multiple different students. So I think that is another big mistake that I would definitely suggest.
Awesome. Ellen, Katelyn, anything to add? If not, no worries.
I think Harsh really hit the nail on the head. Interviews are not just a chit chat between you and some random. You need to be ready to kind of work in everything that you want them to know about you in every question that's asked. Doing mock interviews is important. I had someone on here working with me on some mock interviews and I said, okay, let's work on the basics. Tell me about yourself. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you she rambled on for 10 minutes. And I said, okay, let's try it again. Let's hit kind of these points. Same thing, rambled on 10 minutes. And I said, okay, well, now you ask me and I'll show you a good way to answer. And I gave kind of concise bullet point answers. And she said, that's what I just said. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You went off in 10,000 different directions and I stopped paying attention, right? You need someone to give you feedback to say, hey, I get what you're trying to say. But here's, a tighter way to say it, right? A lot of what you added in there really wasn't important and you rambled off on all sorts of tangents. So practicing those kind of skills of interviewing, being friendly to everyone in the office, talking to everyone in the interview. It's important that they know, I keep coming back to this, the type of person they're going to be welcoming into the community. Friendly, welcoming, able to communicate well, able to express themselves. Those are all very, very important things.
That's great. I saw we've been doing some research on how important mock interviews are for the application. They are so important, guys. Mock interviews are so important. They're probably the number one thing that you need to do before your actual interview. Because as Ellen is kind of talking to you, just like saying your answers out loud, you learn so much about about yourself, but also having that objective person again to be like, okay, you said this, here's what I heard. Are they matching? If not, how can we strengthen your response? So you should absolutely be doing mock interviews. Okay, we have one more question. We've gotten a bunch of some logistical questions that I want to address really fast. Once again, apply to the giveaway if you haven't already. If you want access to the recording, make sure that you've created a free account on Leland. We will be recording all Dental School Week events, but you need to sign up for the individual sessions and have an account on Leland, and then you will get the recordings for those. Sign up for the boot camp, sign up for intro calls with these coaches. If you're not sure whether coaching or the boot camp is for you, then you can book a free call with a member of our team. It really depends on how much support you want, what your budget looks like, what your time commitment looks like. Amanda will drop the link that you can sign up for a free call with anyone on our team. We'll hear about your situation and we'll tell you what is the best kind of path forward for you. Okay, last question. Final tip for the dental school application process. This can be a banging on the table of something that we've already said. It can be something that we haven't had the time to discuss. Coaches, what is your last tip that you want to leave with everyone tonight? Katelyn, start us off.
Yeah, I've emphasized this a lot in my answers tonight, but do the things that you're passionate about and be more than just your scores. They are important, your DAT and GPA, but they are the least interesting thing about you. So you want to make sure you're pursuing things that you're passionate about, that you want to talk about, that you want to write about, because I'm sure you guys have experienced this. You've had professors that love what they do and you want to go to class and listen to them, and you've had professors that you just don't want to hear blab on for hours. So you don't want to be that applicant that just doesn't seem like they even have a personality. Show your personality, show what you're passionate about, and make sure the admissions committee can really see that.
Naps. Excellent. Last piece of advice. Harsh, what is yours?
Yeah, I would say really be mindful of how you articulate each of your components of the dental school application. So every single activity that you're writing about, every essay that you write about, personal statement, manual dexterity, make sure everything is really well written, because you never know what component is going to connect with an application reader. There's, so many different application readers out there. For a quick experience of mine, I put down that I was a Yelp elite reviewer just because that was a big thing that I did in undergrad. And you don't know how many different interviewers asked me about that. It was like over 3 or 4 interviews just asked me about that specific activity. So you don't know what will resonate with somebody. So I definitely recommend articulating everything very well.
Thank you, Harsh. I love that. Ellen, finish us off.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Katelyn and Harsh both said. Your grades and your boards, the hardest thing you're going to work on are the ones that they're just kind of a box that schools can look at, and there's no more depth to it than that. But when you're talking about yourself and you're putting things forward in your own voice, in the personal statement, in the secondary materials, in the work and activities, and all of that, this is your opportunity to really present a well-written, well-communicated statement about who you are, the type of person you are, what's brought you to this stage, not only why you want this, but why you are a good fit for these programs, right? Secondary applications should be focusing on the individual schools and what their values are, not just kind of generic, I want to be a pediatric dentist. You have to go deep and you have to do your research. So it's very important, but it's a great opportunity starting this early to be able to put your best foot forward and really let schools reading this know who you are and what strong student they're going to get if they get you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, coaches. What a stellar and very, very informative first session of Dental School Week. Hope you guys you probably have more questions than answers after this session, but don't worry because we have so many sessions to continue helping you. We actually have a Q&A right after this too. So if you are leaving with some questions, make sure to go to that. Thank you so much for your answers, coaches. Those were great. Our giveaway winner is Gary Clemens. Congratulations, Gary. We'll be in touch. Psyched to have you on our boot camp. It really is the best thing to get started on your application. Like I mentioned, I'm doing a boot camp right now and I'm loving it. Thank you, coaches. Harsh, Katelyn, Ellen, thank you so much. These coaches are here of their own volition tonight, sharing their tips and wisdom with you. If you wouldn't mind joining me in thanking them in the chat, thank you so much, coaches, for being here. And for those of you who are spending your Tuesday evenings with us, thank you for being here as well. Okay, let's get you into a dental school. We are here to help you with every part of the application. Set up a strategy call. This QR code will send you to a link to set up a call with a member of our team, and we can talk to you about the boot camps versus the coaching. You can also book calls directly with these 3 coaches. We've sent in their profiles a couple times. You can find them on Leland. But once again, thank you and happy dental school week. Thanks, everyone.
Good luck, everyone.